anything out, because you will get some cake out of it. Don't invent birthdays, but please just let us know. Okay. Are you ready? I'm going to start the talk now. Yeah, thanks for that. So, does Christianity fall into any of these following descriptions? Oh, why is that not on the screen? That's different to what I've got here. That's really odd. Clicked on that one. Oh no, we've got a technical difficulty.
Harry lives on.
Yeah. But I didn't bring his computer. It's his computer that normally has the glitches. There you go. Is Christianity boring, irrelevant, or untrue? Those are the sort of things we want to look at today while Danny hopefully fixes the computer, because it's sort of frozen. It's frozen on that screen. When I was a youngster, my experience of church was my parents used to drag me along to the local parish church. Oh, sorry. My parents used to drag me along to the local parish church with my sister. We were only youngsters then, and it was the most boring part of my week. If I'm honest, neither of us enjoyed it, and most of the time we spent actually just fighting each other in the church and getting told off for fighting each other, because that's what you do when you're siblings. And anyway, that 1 hour, because they were quite strict with it, unlike Junction, they were very strict. They had a 1 hour service, and that hour seemed like, I don't know, at least 8 hours in my child's mind. Anyway, then when I got to the age of 13, I was fortunate enough to go to public school, because I'm very posh. And I like to think of myself as posh, so I went to public school. And at public school, certainly school I went to, they had chapel every day in the morning. It sort of replaced, it was like an assembly, but it was like a chapel with we'd sing a hymn, and there'd be a talk, and it'd be a sort of Christian-based talk. That also, for me, was extremely boring. I didn't really engage with that much. Sometimes you listened, sometimes you didn't. It was a good chance, though, to tease someone who you didn't normally see. So chapel was about the whole school coming together, and you perhaps teasing, bullying, harassing, whatever it is. I mean, nowadays you get locked up for it, and those days it was just normal. And so that was my experience there. And for me it was quite. Is it done?
It is, yes.
Oh, well done, sir. Thank you. There you go. And how's that? There. Oh no, it's not there. I've got the first slide. It's not doing the second slide. Anyway, at least I can remind myself what we're talking about. And I think, to be honest, if you're sort of my generation, or where you've had to do that, then you might possibly sympathise with that. Maybe you enjoyed the experience, I don't know. But it depends how it's run, really. So for me it was difficult and boring, and I just thought, is there any relevance to my life? And I couldn't sort of wait to get out of school, really, just to sort of disengage with all that. The author, Robert Louis Stevenson, said in his diary, he said, I went to church today, and I've come back, but I am not depressed. So it's not just me, it's obviously other people as well. So we're going to show a bit of video in a minute, I think, of some on-street interviews, if this works. How's that? Danny, there you go. Danny's the man who fixes anything technical-wise, right? Okay, it's just I can't see my notes now, that's all. So we've got a clip of video, and this video is taken on the streets, just questioning people around them, what they think about the Christian faith and what they think about church. So have a look at this. So we've got a whole range of responses there, and probably most of us can identify with at least one of those responses and say, yeah, that's pretty near what I think. So the question that we raise about the Christian faith is its claims untrue? If God exists, where is he? Where's the historical evidence for Jesus and the claims of the Bible? Is this not a religion that's just been made up by a few men 2,000 years ago in the Middle East. And how do we verify that truth now? If there's truth in that, how do we verify it? Are there not now lots of intellectuals who go on TV and argue and debate convincingly that God and Jesus don't and never did exist? So how can we know the truth about such ideas? And if Jesus did exist, what relevance of the life of Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago and 2,000 miles away in the Middle East, what relevance does that have to my situation in Maidstone today? So as I get up early and every morning and I take the train to work to try and earn money to keep a roof over our heads, what possible relevance can Jesus be in that life as I just try and financially survive and try and navigate safely through life? And these are real questions, aren't they? Real questions that we all have. And particularly in a society that has very little Christian teaching. So unlike my day when you had assemblies and you had chapel and those sort of things, a lot of people actually don't know that much now about Christianity. And that's borne out because I was just reading something about a hospital chaplain who, if you like, is a sort of a Christian person working within the hospital, and they offer Holy Communion, you know, the wine and the bread, to anyone in hospital who might want it. And this hospital chaplain reported some very strange answers to the question, would you like Holy Communion? And so on asking that question, would you like Holy Communion, one person said, no thank you, I'm Church of England. Another person says, no thank you, I've asked for cornflakes. And a third, and this will really get you, and a third person said, no thanks, I've never been circumcised. I didn't even know that was a condition of the thing, to be honest with you. I'm glad I didn't, to be fair. And one of the problems we face with Christianity is that we get sound bites from society, from TV debates, the internet, but what we often lack is a personal experience of the Christian faith. So in a way we can have the head knowledge, but what we're not getting is the heart knowledge, if you like, the whole experience, the whole person experience. Now, I have a book here somewhere, if I can find my computer back, here we go. Now, you may not know that President Obama claims to be a Christian, and in his book, Audacity of Hope, he says this. He says, each day, it seems, thousands of Americans are going about their daily rounds, dropping off the kids at school, driving to the office, flying to a business meeting, shopping at the mall, trying to stay on their diets, and coming to the realization that something is missing. They are deciding that their work, their possessions, their diversions, their sheer busyness are not enough. They want a sense of purpose, a narrative arc to their lives, something that will relieve a chronic loneliness or lift them above the exhausting, relentless toil of daily life. They need an assurance that somebody out there cares about them, is listening to them, that they are not just destined to travel down a long highway towards nothingness. And isn't that the truth as we navigate through life? And just in case you didn't know what he looks like, that's what he looks like. I'm having this thing. Oh, there you go. So the problem is that we were created to have a relationship with God. We are relational beings after all, and we're very social by nature. And it's why people suffer when they're in isolation. There's a lot of mental health illness around loneliness, when people haven't got people around them, supporting them. And it's terrible for people who suffer with that thing. And it's quite endemic in our society. Being in company with someone runs through our DNA. And God created us to have a relationship with him. Now, Bernard Levin was perhaps the greatest newspaper columnist of his time. He wrote a column for the Times. In fact, he wrote 2 columns for the Times. So one is good, but 2 is awesome, to have 2 columns in the Times. And he was a vast intellectual. And he wasn't religious in any way. He didn't have a faith or anything like that. But he said this in one of his articles. He said, countries like ours are full of people who have all the material comforts they desire, together with such non-material blessings as a happy family, and yet they live lives of quiet and at times noisy desperation, understanding nothing but the fact that there is a hole inside them, a bit like the picture that's up there now. And however much food and drink they pour into that hole, however many motor cars and television sets they stuff it with, however many well-balanced children and loyal friends they parade around the edges of it, it aches. So he's saying there's this great ache for something more than just material and non-material stuff. Now Jesus said this, and you may have heard this before. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth and the life. And if this quote is true, then the implications of this quote are startling for you and for me today in Maidstone. They were as startling 2,000 years ago to the listeners of Jesus as it is now. So what are we to make of this statement? Is this statement the key to understanding why each one of us actually exists and has a being on this planet? And it's definitely worth investigating. So we're going to have a look at this. Now, I don't suppose anyone, you get top marks if you can guess who that is on the screen behind me. Anyone know? Not quite.
Darwin.
No, Leo Tolstoy, the author of War and Peace. He was a great author. Thank you for your guesses. They were really good guesses, better than I would have made. But Leo Tolstoy decided early on in life to reject Christianity as an option, and he searched for meaning and purpose for life. He left university and decided that he was going to get as much pleasure out of life as he could. So he entered the social worlds of Moscow and St. Petersburg, drinking heavily, sleeping around with women, gambling and generally living a very wild life. But he found that this brought him no satisfaction. So then he became ambitious for money. He inherited an estate and made a large amount of money on his books, which are still bought and read today. But he was still not satisfied with that. He sought fame, he sought success and importance, and he got all those things. But once he'd got all those things, he was still not satisfied. So he thought, I know, I'll have a family. So in 1862 he got married, and he had a lovely wife, and he had 13 children. Can you believe it? And those 13 children, he said, distracted him from the overall meaning and purpose of life, which of course they would do. If you've got 3 or 4, it's just as bad. He was driven to the point of suicide because of this one question, which I'll put on the screen for you if it works. Although I'm not sure it's going to work. Let's try that. Yes, it is. And this question was this: is there any meaning in my life which would not be annihilated by the inevitability of the death which awaits me? He searched the answer in every field of science and philosophy, and the only answer to the meaning of life he could find was this: that in an infinity of space and in the infinity of time, infinitely small particles mutate with infinite complexity. Of course, to him, it didn't help his journey. It didn't help that question that he had hanging over his head. It did not satisfy him, because essentially it's saying you're an accident. The reason why you're here on the planet Earth is because you're an accident. So he went to seek the answer from his contemporaries and his peers, only to find that they were avoiding the issue. And eventually he found his answer. He found it in all places amongst Russia's peasants. He found exactly what he wanted. He found faith in Jesus Christ. He'd done a full circle. He'd rejected it as a young man, and he found it as an old man. He wrote after his conversion that he was led inescapably by experience to the conviction that, and again I can bring his quote up here, he says this: only faith gives life a meaning. At that point his life was fulfilled, and he had discovered the meaning of life. And over 100 years later, the question is the same for all of us. At some point in our life, we ask this question: Whether we decide to ignore the question, whether we decide to seek the answer, is up to us. But in the words of Freddie Mercury, does anyone know what we're living for? Freddie Mercury died in 1991. And for those that you, like me, who remember that when it was announced on the news, you think, was it really that long ago? Hasn't time flown? But that's 24 years ago that he died. And despite the fact that he had amassed a huge wealth, and he was idolised by many thousands across the globe, he admitted shortly before his death that he was desperately lonely. He said, "You can have everything in the world and still be the loneliest man." And that's the most bitter type of loneliness. Success has brought me world idolisation and millions of pounds, but it's prevented me from having one thing that we all need: a loving, ongoing relationship. And he was right about that ongoing relationship being the one thing that we all need. So when Jesus said, as quoted earlier, "I am the way," he was saying that he was the only one who can bring us into an ongoing relationship with God, a relationship that would last forever. Some people are very happy with their lives, probably because they don't realise that there is something actually better for them around the corner. And some people are driven by the same question that Tolstoy had, and it can drive you mad. What is the meaning of my life? But once we've experienced a relationship with God, the purpose and meaning of life becomes clear. We all see things we've never seen. It's like you see with new eyes. And that's certainly been the case for me and everyone I know who've been on this journey of faith. There's a point when they see with new eyes and they just think, I'm thinking differently, I'm seeing things differently. Just life becomes transformed at that point. Secondly, Jesus said this: I am the truth. What is truth? Well, I've got a clip of video for you, Danny, if you don't mind, that will actually sort of bring this question to the fore, even in the church. Even, I dare to say, in a Lego church. What is truth? Often people say, it doesn't matter what you believe, providing that you're happy. But then if you think about that statement, I mean, Adolf Hitler was happy conquering Europe, wasn't he? And that affected millions of victims. The Yorkshire Ripper was happy killing prostitutes, believing that he was doing the right thing. Jihadi John believes that he's doing God's work by beheading prisoners. And I know these are extreme examples, but it clearly does matter what we believe because it dictates how we live. Often people say, it's lovely for you that you got faith, but it's not for me. But that's not logical, because if faith is true, the implications are of vital importance to everybody. If I said to you now, I believe in fairies at the bottom of the garden, you could say, well, that's nice for you, but it's not really for me. And you, at that point, you'd walk away thinking, I need to be locked up in some asylum somewhere, as you conclude that I'm sort of seriously mad. If God exists, surely it's the most important thing to find out who he is. Because if he exists, the meaning of life will be found with him. Why? Because it's always the creator who knows why he created something. The answer always lies there, doesn't it? So if you design something, you will have a reason for it. So if you want a reason for why Mr. Dyson invented the Dyson vacuum cleaner, then you'll go and see him and he'll explain to you the meaning of the Dyson vacuum cleaner. That's where the answer will lie. They're good vacuum cleaners, by the way. I just add that. Get sponsorship for that. That's great. And this is why I think Alpha is good. It's a great course, really, because it's a chance to explore. It's a chance to debate. We owe it to ourselves to find out this truth about life. There are many scientists, historical and present, who actually explored that and found the faith for themselves. The Christian faith. So Galileo, Copernicus, Kepler, Newton, Mendel, Pasteur, Maxwell and Francis Collins, who's the director of the Human Genome Project. All of those great scientists, historically, they're some of the best. Isaac Newton, apparently the greatest scientist that ever lived, apparently, came to the conclusion that God existed, and that the main meaning of life was a relationship through Jesus. Professor James Simpson was a brilliant scientist whose discoveries paved the way for a safe, painless surgery. And someone once asked him, "Professor Simpson, of all these discoveries you've made, which of them was the greatest?" And he said, "Well, actually, the greatest discovery I ever made was the day I discovered Jesus Christ." And one of the greatest lawyers in the second half of the 20th century was Lord Denning, who you may have heard of. He towered over the legal profession for 50 years. He was also president of the Lawyers' Christian Fellowship. He had looked at the evidence with a lawyer, from a lawyer point of view, and he had found his faith in Jesus Christ through the evidence. So the next claim of Jesus, "I am the life." The Christian view has always been that people are made in the image of God, which means that there's something noble about every human being. This conviction was a driving force behind many of the great social reformers, and there's lists and lists of the social reformers. But it starts at Wilberforce, and you've got Martin Luther King, and you've got Desmond Tutu. But there is another side of the coin, and the other side of the coin is this, that we make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Does anyone here not make mistakes at all? No, so you all do. And Cheryl didn't put her hand up, so that's great. I don't know if you know this, but they published GCSE, some of the mistakes on GCSE papers after the exams. And some of these mistakes look like this. One person wrote this: "In the first book of the Bible, Guinness's, Adam and Eve were created from an apple tree. One of their children, Cain, asked, 'Am I my brother's son?' Another person wrote this: Moses led the Hebrew slaves to the Red Sea, where they made unleavened bread, which is bread made without any ingredients at all." How does that work? We'll be having that next week with our baby. Moses went up to Mount Sinai to get the 10 Commandments. He died before he ever reached Canada. In Canada, I think. And another one wrote this: "Greeks are highly sculptured people, and without them we wouldn't have history. The Greeks also had myths. A myth is a female moth." The standards are clearly dropping, aren't they? Another wrote this: "Socrates was a famous Greek teacher who went around giving people advice. They killed him. Socrates died from an overdose of wedlock. After his death, his career suffered a dramatic decline." As it would, wouldn't it? And another one, that this: "Julius Caesar extinguished himself on the battlefields of Gaul. The Ides of March murdered him because they thought he was going to be made king. Dying, he gasped out, 'Tee Brutus.'" And this is I think my favourite of all these. But it's not easy, nor is it boring, and nor is it untrue, and nor is it irrelevant for our lives. It is exciting. It's true, it's very relevant, because Jesus said this: "I am the way, the truth, and the life." So this course here is a practical introduction to the Christian faith. It's running in thousands of churches across the globe. By 2010, I know 14 million people had participated in the Alpha course. That's how successful the course has been. And so this course, from now until December, we want to run it like this. This is not supposed to be oppressive or anything like that. This is supposed to be open, to leave you open to discuss what you believe. Even though I might be very directive from the front. Actually, in your discussion groups, you can please feel free just to ask questions. If you have to miss certain weeks because you can't make it, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. Just come back when you can. And you don't have to believe in God to come. You may believe in nothing at all. You may not be sure that you have a relationship with God. You actually might believe in God, but not sure if you have a relationship. So if you want to explore that further, this is a great forum to do it within. And if we are a Christian already and think, yeah, I'm fully on board with that, fully up for God, fully up for the Christian faith, believe in Jesus and the rest of it, this is a great opportunity to anchor those facts of your faith in relationships, in the debate, in the information that you'll receive. And hopefully the understanding will become easier. But whatever your belief, wherever that sits, your belief, if Christianity is true, it is of infinite importance, and it is worth investing some time coming to these Sunday mornings. I want to just show you another little video clip, James's story, if I may, just as someone who's done an Alpha course, and this is what he says about it. It's interesting, isn't it? Because he says he found something he didn't even know he had missing, but he found it in Alpha anyway. And I'll just say this particular session, this talk, is an introductory session. And if there's someone you think, actually, do you know this, they would really benefit from this course, or it would really help answer some of their questions, I would encourage you to bring them along. It's not too late. They can come at any time. If they can't do next week, then the week after, or the week after that, whatever. I would just encourage you to bring husbands, partners, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever, to this forum and just say, be part of the debate, be part of the discussion. It's really worth it. The Apostle Paul in the Bible went to Athens, and he gave them the good news, and once they heard, they said, I love that, I want to be that. And there might be someone here, even now, even just today, who would love to have a relationship with God and not sure whether they've got that thing going or not. Well, the good news is that you can have that right now if you wanted it, and it's really simple. Because to be right with God, all you have to do is turn away from the things that we know are wrong. We say sorry. We then thank Jesus for dying for us on the cross, and we put our faith in him. And then we say, please come and fill me with your Spirit to empower us to live. So essentially it's sorry, thank you, and please. And I'm going to say that prayer in a minute, and I'm not asking anyone to sort of stand out or stand up or do anything other than just accept the prayer in your heart if you want to. You don't have to. But if you think, actually, I want to start now. At the beginning of this course, I actually want to start by making a commitment to God. Or it might be that in your heart you might think, actually, I don't really understand, but I'd like to understand more. And your prayer might be, God, help me understand more, because I'm a bit lost here. And that's a good prayer too. That's a good prayer too. So if that's where you are, I think, God, just help me to understand. Then, great. Then do that. So, Jesus is here. He's alive. You can speak to him today, and I'm just going to say this prayer, and I just ask that everyone would just bow their heads, close your eyes, or however you would do that prayer, and I'm just going to say this, and I just want you to echo it in your heart if this is what you want. Lord Jesus Christ, I'm sorry for the things in my life that have been wrong, and then of course if anything comes to mind, then please put that to Jesus. Anything you've done particularly that you want to give to him, then give to him in your heart. Please forgive me. I now turn away from everything that I know is wrong. Thank you that you died for me on the cross. I receive your forgiveness. I trust you with my life. And I ask you please to come and fill me with your Spirit to be with me forever. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. We do have actually, and we do at the end of every Sunday, an opportunity to pray with the prayer team. And usually situated, I think probably be the same today, we're situated in the corner there. So while we're packing up, while we're all sort of, getting rid of all the stuff and tidying and the rest of it, feel free to go to the prayer team who will pray with you. Now, you may have said that prayer and think, I just want to witness that to the prayer team, that would be brilliant. Or it could be anything else. You might want to go to the prayer team and say, I really want to do this course, I need understanding, help me to understand. Whatever you need, they'll in a very discerning way pray for your needs. So whatever's going on in your head, they'll pray for you. If you need healing, they'll pray for you. If you need stuff going on in your life to be sorted out, they will pray with you. That's what we do, that's what we're there for. Because we want to bring God's love into every life and every situation. So don't be afraid, it's normal practice here. So just in the corner there, go up to one of the prayer team and just say, I'd like some prayer, and they will be with you, and they'll do that with you. Right, how are we doing for time? Now, after each session that you have, there is usually discussion time of probably about 25 minutes, half an hour. We won't have that today because actually I haven't thrown anything out there particularly to discuss. We will have some discussion time. You probably get 10-15 minutes today before we finish. But that's great, this is just the introductory bit. I've got another video for you. Now I want to know if you want to see it, because some of you have seen Clayton Jennings before. I know Cheryl showed one last week, wasn't it? And I've showed one before. 5-minute video. Now, put your hand up if you want to see it. A few people. How many is that? How do I know? How do I know it's not 50-50 split? Eh? Clayton Jennings. Spoken word.
How are you supposed to know if you've never seen a video?
Alright, well, I said we'll watch it. We'll watch it, and then after the video, then just feel free to chat in your groups. And then at a time that we need to pack up, then we'll just say it's time to pack up. Okay, is that a deal? Okay, Clayton Jennings is a young man, well, not so young now, but he's very much a sort of spoken word poet almost. And he's very upfront with his faith. And this bit that he does describes his faith and what his faith means to him. So it's quite useful for us to see in the context of what he has to say. But he communicates really well. Anyway, let's have a look at that.